If you wear a sari that makes noise, then it affects the recording. Where's my bag? You have to change it. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Balaram Bhagi Varadari Gopi Jana Balaram Bhagi Varadari Yashodananda Bhagavana Ranjana Yashodananda Bhagavana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to Isopanisad mantra 16. So these ones, these verses are the last few verses up until mantra 18. If I say mantra 19 and you didn't read, that means I can bluff you. Right? Like Shudi Prabhu said, if I say chapter 19 of the Bhagavad Gita, if I quote from chapter 19 of the Bhagavad Gita, whereas there's only 18 verses, 18 chapters, 700 verses. Yes. So, thus far we covered how to live in harmony with the Ishvara or Krishna from mantras 1 to 3. Then we did how devotion will enable us to see the Lord in mantras 4 to 8. Then we covered how, which is the correct and incorrect knowledge for understanding the Ishvara in mantras 9 to 11. And then in mantras 12 to 14, we did correct, incorrect worship of Ishvara. And now from 15 to 19, we are doing prayers of longing for Ishvara to reveal himself. There are 19 mantras in this. He was testing you and he said 18. You believed him. So let's do some quick revision to catch up on what we've covered last week. So who can explain the three aspects of the absolute truth? Loudly and clearly.
Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan.
Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Read loud and clear for me. Avish?
Paramatma feature of personality of Godhead is one of the planetary expansions of Vishnu Tattvas, literally known as the Purusa
Avatars?
One of the Vishnu Tattvas who is within the universe is known as the
Shiradakshai Vishnu.
He is Vishnu among the three principal deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and he is all-pervading Paramatma in each and every deity. Second Vishnu Tattva within the universe is
Garbhadakshai Vishnu.
the collective supersoul of all living entities beyond these two.
Karanadakshai Vishnu.
Who lies in
Causal.
Ocean and the creator of all the universe.
Right. So there's three categories. First, you have Krishna, who is the impersonal Brahman, right? He's the impersonal light that comes from. Is the impersonal aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then you get, there's 18 verses.
19.
So clever. Right? So now we studied the invocation as a verse. So we considered we studied 19 shlokas in this book. Now you get Krishna, the impersonal light coming from his body is the Brahma Jyoti. Then you get Krishna, like who in his localized aspect, and that is Krishna as the super soul within every atom, within every living being, in between every atom. So Krishna is all pervading. So the all pervasive aspect, God knows everything at every moment. Why don't you move the drum there and sit on this chair so I can see Prabhu behind you? No. Are you okay? Yeah, okay. You're not opposed to non-corners. Thank you. So what happens is you get God who knows everything at every moment. So as the Paramatma feature, he is actually the indwelling witness and sanctions. Those are the two aspects of Paramatma. So Paramatma is which aspect? The localized aspect, all pervasive aspect of God, right? Then you get beyond that, beyond the light, beyond his being localized here, there, and everywhere, he is the source of everything. So that is another feature of God, which many schools of understanding do not know about. And that is the personalized aspect of God known as Bhagavan. So in his Bhagavan feature, he's a person like you and I, but he is a supreme person. He doesn't have the limitations of us. So when people say, let the universe speak to me, which aspect are they speaking of? Mostly it's the impersonal aspect, right? Because can the universe exist on its own? It can't exist on its own. What's the universe made up of? Earth, water, fire, air, and ether. If I give you all amounts of earth, water, fire, and air and ether, and we don't know the recipe to create a planet that rotates perfectly on its axis. We do not know how to keep all the planets in perfect orbit around the sun, etc. Right? So there has to be a supreme intelligence behind it. Just like there's a comic of two snowmen, snowmen, right? And the one is telling the other one, we evolved from the ice particles. But in actual fact, there's snow everywhere. Some supreme intelligence had to form the snowman to give him his character, etc. So, so those are the three aspects of Vishnu, of God. So now, what must be removed in order for us to see the absolute? His effulgence must be removed. What must be removed? Wanting material things, good. More. If one wants to see the absolute truth in full, one has to penetrate beyond the 24 material coverings of this universe, right? So there's 24 coverings, right? And the Sri Isopanisad elements, the 24 material elements, and the glaring effulgence as well. Sri Isopanishad points towards this direction, praying for the removal of the Hiranyamaya Patra, the dazzling covering of the Lord. Unless this covering is removed, so one can perceive the real face of the personality of Godhead, factual realization of the absolute truth can never be achieved. So what are these 24 what are these 24 material elements? Anyone can say? Before we answer that, who can say what is the absolute truth? The Prabhu explained very nicely last week. What is the absolute truth? Who is the absolute truth? Loudly? No?
Sri Krishna.
Who's that? Yes, Radha Krishna. Not just Krishna alone, right? Krishna alone is not God. Krishna needs his Shaktiman, Srimati Radharani. Um, so, what are the 24 elements? Can you see? Is it clear from the back or it's a bit blur? Shall I give you some help? 24 material elements are made up of 5 gross elements that we just mentioned: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Then you have the knowledge acquiring senses, which are 5 in number, which are eyes, ears, nose, taste, and a tongue and touch. Then you have the working senses. What are the working senses? The working senses are the voice, the legs, the hands, the evacuating organs, reproductive organs. Then you get number 16, mind, intelligence, false ego, and the pradhan, which is, what is the pradhan?
Raw ingredients.
The raw ingredients of creation, right? So the objects of the senses are form, sound, smell, taste, and touch. So all these 24, what you have to do about that? One has to penetrate beyond the 24 material elements. Remember that statement? One has to penetrate beyond these 24 elements, right? Now, what we just saw as the 24 elements seem to be so vital, right? How can we not, how can we move beyond that? So these are all part of the material strata. The Atma, or the soul, is beyond all matter. What we saw are components of matter, which also includes the material body, the makeup of the material body. So to understand the absolute truth, to understand Krishna, to understand our relationship with Krishna, we have to penetrate beyond all of this. And the results of the interactions of these 25 elements, if we do not penetrate beyond these 24 elements, these are things that we are caught up in. It's a cycle of pleasure, pain, desire, hatred, right? So it's a world of duality without the spirituality in it. Okay? So now, anyone wants to ask anything about this? The class will explain further how can we go further beyond this. Mantra 16. This verse is in prose form, so there is no tune to it, so it's got to be read. Pushan ekarshe yamasur ya prajapatya vyuharasmin samuha tejo yat te rupam kalyana tamam pasyami yosav aso purusho soham. O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, well-wisher of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun as am I. So this is rather poetically put, right? There's a lot of philosophy in this prayer. So this prayer is now at the very end of life, when a person has endeavored on the devotional path and is now begging the Lord, praying to the Lord for his mercy to reveal himself. So what does he want? Which self does he want the Lord to reveal? Not the Brahma Jyoti, not the Paramatma feature. He wants his face to be, he wants his form of bliss. So when one practices, so there's Sat, Chit, and Ananda, right? Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So Sat is eternality, Chit is knowledge feature, and Ananda is bliss feature. Okay. Prabhu, if you want, you can put your chair against the glass and lean. You're good like that. Yeah, okay. You're comfortable with? Okay. Good. So what happens is the Sat, Chit, and Ananda feature, right, of the Lord, eternality, knowledge, and bliss. So when one strives for the understanding of God as the supermost effulgent light, right, that God is the unknown, He is just this big light in the sky, He's nothing else but light. That type of understanding only lets us understand the Sat feature, the eternality feature of the Lord. Then you get the Sat, then the Chit feature. The Sat Chit feature, eternality and knowledge together, is in Paramatma realization. When one comes to the understanding that God, He's eternal, but He's also all pervasive. He's everywhere. He's my indwelling witness. He is everywhere, right? So that understanding is Sat and Chit feature together, right? Eternality and knowledge. Then, when one understands that beyond the Sat and Chit feature is a feature of Ananda, a figure of happiness and bliss, interaction with happiness and bliss will give us also happiness and bliss. What is that? That is the personalized feature of the Lord, the form of bliss, right? As you can see in this prayer, right? It's a form of bliss. It's not just light of bliss. He could have said the light of bliss, or he could have said, the paramatma of bliss. But he says your form of bliss. You are the eternal spiritual personality of Godhead, like unto the Son as am I. So this is very nicely explained in the paragraphs of the purport, which we'll come to now. But firstly, a very good point of learning here. When a prayer is started, then some glorification of the personality you're praying to should be there, so that some favorable description, in other words, so that you earn their favorability, you earn their um, uh, goodwill, right? So when you start to speak to somebody, if I come and say, oh, you are, like the most ethical person I know, right? I always admire how you stand by your ethics, and that, you have so much of compassion in a very selfless way, as I've witnessed in your deeds, words, and activities. How do you feel towards me, right? You feel that this person has been observing me, knows a little bit more about me. I can, there's a door opening where you want that person to get a little closer, more generally. So now, this prayer, this devotee is making this prayer in such a manner. The sun and its rays are one and the same qualitatively. So two descriptions of the sun is here, that there's the sun and the sun rays, right? Similarly, the Lord and the living entities are one and same in quality, but not in quantity. Just like Prabhupada gives the analogy, a drop of water from the salty ocean and the entire ocean, they have the same qualities but in different quantities. The drop is minute, the ocean is vast. So similarly, in this analogy here, the sun is one, but the molecules of the sun rays are innumerable. The sun rays constitute part of the sun, and the sun and its rays conjointly constitute the complete sun. So is that, now that we get a clear picture, right? There's Krishna and there's us. Krishna is full and we are limited, right? Like the sun rays and the sun planet. Then you get within this, now the second analogy of the sun. Within the sun itself resides the sun god, whose name is Suryadev, right? So Suryadev, and similarly, within the supreme planet Goloka Vrindavan, from which the Brahma Jyoti effulgence emanates, the Lord enjoys his pastimes and is verified in the Brahma Samhita verse, which we're going to come to now, 529. So there's the sun planet. Inside it is a personality. Then you get the sun planet. Then you get rays of the sun. So you get the Brahma Jyoti effulgence, which is like the sun rays. The Paramatma feature is like the planet. And inside it is the person who controls everything, who is that personality. So similarly, if that is possible of a material limited planet like the sun, what to speak of a spiritual planet? So spiritual planet mentioned here is a quotation of a prayer describing Krishna by none other than Brahma himself, right? And he says, Chintamani prakarasatma sukalpa vriksha laksha vriteshu surabir abhipala yantam Lakshmi sahasra satasam ramasevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows full of desires in abodes filled with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of wish-fulfilling trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis or goddesses of fortune. So Lord Brahma, he is the secondary creator, right? He's the engineer of this universe. It's like a carpenter will be supplied, if this was wood, now this is metal. If a carpenter is supplied with wood, right? There's no wooden furniture, but if, I don't know what you call someone who's not, makes plastic chairs, it's not a carpenter, right? So if you give a carpenter wood, huh? Okay, back to old school. If you have a carpenter and you actually hire him and you supply him with the top quality oak wood and so many good things, right? Then what happens is that he creates the most articulately carved table for you. Can he at the end of the day say it's his table? Because he created it with his intelligence. It's not his table. We won't say which political party he belongs to, but if he's an ethical carpenter, he can't claim proprietorship over the table because it's still yours, because you, the person who hired him to do the job, right? So now, the Brahma, he unfortunately doubted his own position and his position with Krishna, and thereby he stole the cows, right, and the cow herd boys for an entire year. And Krishna, he saw them eating off Krishna's plate and Krishna feeding Krishna with their dirty hands, etc. So he said, this blue, over-talkative boy can't be God. He had his doubts. So when he did that, Krishna showed his amazing opulence of expanding exactly like those missing boys and the calves, and he went home. So for the whole year, he lived like that. And the mother cows and the mothers of the cowherd boys, missing boys, they started to love this image, these kids even more, because Krishna is all attractive. Even if he comes in disguise, as your spouse, you love him more than you love your spouse, like that, so to speak. So Brahma composed these prayers, and he explains after he came to his senses. It's a long story you can read in the Krishna book. So what happens is he composes his prayers, and he first of all, he understands that Krishna likes to be called Govinda in relationship to his ardent devotee cows, right? So he calls him Govinda. I worship Govinda. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. The primeval Lord, the first progenitor. That means Brahma is hereby, at the very beginning, acknowledging that he is not the first creator. There's a creator beyond him, right? So he says the first progenitor, because why? Krishna is Brahma is progeny of Krishna himself. Then he's saying, who is tending the cows, fulfilling all desires in abodes. So what does Krishna do? He's simply enjoying. He's not working very hard. He's simply tending the cows, enjoying pastimes with the cows, fulfilling all desires in abodes filled with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of wish-fulfilling trees. The ground on which Krishna's abode, the ground in Krishna's abode has gems. What we would work our entire life to acquire and still have to pay half in taxes, Krishna walks on as it's insignificant in Goloka Vrindavan, right? We may not, how many people at the end of their lives will own one brick of gold? Very few, right? You may work so hard, and maybe if you work for 25, in the olden days, I know my father used to say, you work for so long, you'll get a gold Rolex watch from your boss when you retire. That was like a norm back in the olden days. Nowadays, when you retire, look what happened in was it Turkey? Their pension funds even got stolen from them, right? So what we spend our entire livelihood trying to, our good health we give. We sacrifice our good health to sit whole day at a desk, perhaps to acquire what? Wealth, right? We would sacrifice family time for what? Work. We would sacrifice time, wealth. You go to work, you have to buy your clothes. You have to buy a car for your image. You have to buy, the cell phone. You have to buy, you think you have to buy, have to have, have to have. And at the end of it all, what do we have? Whatever we are striving for, whether it's the bitcoins or whatever, right? We must understand that in the eternal abode, that is very insignificant. There is something more valuable that is available that we have to be alert to, right? It's not that we must now live as paupers, right? We must understand that beyond everything else that we may need for our survival, there is something higher, because Krishna, he walks on spiritual gems in his abode. So how amazing is that abode? And then the trees which actually offer shade, and uh, don't only offer shade, they wish fulfilling trees. These trees will fulfill any desire of a person who stands under it. Can you imagine? You go and stand under a tree and you wish for something and it comes true. But you must remember that before you reach that tree, you must give up the 24 elements that we saw in the slide earlier on, right? He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis. We want servants. We always, in the material world, we all suffer from the Ishwar Bhav, that we all want to be served. Everyone should serve me. Everyone should act for my pleasure. But in the spiritual realm, Krishna, he doesn't have to do this. Automatically, he's served by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis. Not just ordinary people, he's served by goddesses of fortune. He doesn't have the maid. He has maid servants who are even better than the goddesses of fortune. What does a goddess of fortune do? She commands fortune. You deserve this. You don't deserve this just now. You deserve more or less, whatever. These Lakshmis that serve the Lord, they are of a different category, far beyond someone who can command wealth. They command the heart of he who is the possessor of all opulences, right? So the purport continues. The Brahma Jyoti is described. Read, Pranolan.
The Brahmajyoti is described in the Brahma Samhita as the rays emanating from that supreme spiritual planet, Goloka Vrindavan, just as the sun's rays emanate from the sun globe. Until one surpasses the day of the Brahmajyoti, one cannot receive information of the land of the Lord. The impersonalist philosophers, blinded as they are by the dazzling Brahmajyoti, can realize neither the factual abode of the Lord nor his transcendental form. Limited by their forefathers' knowledge, such impersonalist thinkers cannot understand the all blissful transcendental form of Lord Krishna.
So, the category of people in a society who are known as the Mayavadis or the Brahmavadis, who are completely absorbed in the effulgence of the Lord, they cannot penetrate this picture of bliss now that we heard previously in the verse of the Brahma Samhita. And these impersonalist philosophers, it's explained they are blinded by this effulgence from the Lord. So they cannot go further. They stop right at this Brahman effulgence, and they miss out on Krishna's personalized form, the picture of bliss, of and everything else that it um, stands, the spiritual world has to offer. Read, Prabhu. I forgot your name.
Derek.
Derek. Read, Derek.
The power of prayer. In this prayer, therefore, Sri Ishpanishad petitions the Lord to remove the effulgent rays of Brahmajyoti so that the pure devotee can see his all blissful transcendental form.
Yes. So this devotee is offering a prayer, a heartfelt prayer, because he does not want to stop at the borderline. He doesn't want to be borderline devotee, stop at the glaring effulgence. He wants to go deeper. And he's praying. Why? Because he has hope against hope. The scriptures use the word ashabanda, that he has hope that if he presents his prayer, Krishna will hear him and Krishna will reciprocate. What's the difference between calling out any mundane sound vibration and calling out Krishna's name? Or, in other words, chanting any mantra and chanting a Hare Krishna mantra. What's the difference?
The Mahamantra is the Lord Himself. It's not different from the Lord.
And what will happen if I chant water, water, water?
The Krishna mantra will have a stronger vibration than the water mantra vibration.
Why?
Because you're requesting Krishna for assistance or for going directly to Krishna and not to the water.
Very good, both of you. The name of Krishna or mantra that has Krishna's holy names has the power to reciprocate. A mantra consisting of mundane sound vibration does not have the ability to reciprocate. So if I just go and I sit down in meditation and try to absorb the sun, or just meditate on an apple or the form of an orange, like some meditation groups teach, right? That is not reciprocal prayer. The Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, or calling out to Krishna in a prayerful mood, will bear fruit because Krishna reciprocates, right? Now, history has proven that Krishna reciprocates even with an elephant, right? Here's the story of Gajendra in the Srimad Bhagavatam. When Gajendra, the king of elephants, went on holiday, he went to the most scenic place. He had with him a flock of she elephants, a flock of elephants, a herd of elephants. So in his herd, he had she elephants that were so beautiful, the best of she elephants, right? His children were with him. And when he went, he was trapped. He left his abode, which is land, he's an animal of land, and he entered the water to sport with his loved ones. What happened? A crocodile bit him, and a creature of the water bit him. And they fought for something like 18,000 years or something like that, right? It was a major fight. Gajendra put up a fight for that period of time. And eventually, He remembered in his last life, he was King Indradumna, right? And he was a great devotee. So he remembered some prayers and he started praying. And what was the prayer he said? Hey Govinda, hey Govinda. He was praying like that, right? And he took with his trunk from that water, he plucked a flower. Holding it in his trunk, he offered it with the prayer, Hey Govinda. And Krishna came riding on Garuda and saved him. The beautiful women elephants in his flock could not save him. His illustrious offspring could not save him. Gajendra, with all of his wealth as the king of elephants, could not save himself. All of his mighty power could not save him. But in one call, Krishna reciprocated with that prayer, and Krishna came and saved him. Similarly, Draupadi. Draupadi had 5 husbands, each one more qualified than you can well imagine to be available in this day and age. Yudhishthir, he was the summum bonum of truth, right? Then you get Bhima, full of strength. He was stronger than 10,000 elephants put together. He could easily uproot trees and fight lions and tigers in the jungle with his bare hands. Then she had Arjuna, who could release an arrow without even seeing his prey. He had the ability to use any weapon, in the most dexterous manner. Then there was Sahadev and Naku, who were the most handsome. All the qualities of a husband put into these 5 bodies. It was like one soul living in 5 bodies, right? It was Draupadi's husbands. But at the time when she was being disrobed in the assembly of illustrious members of the dynasty she belonged to as a daughter-in-law, nobody could save her. The most powerful of gurus were present. The most powerful of kings were present. The most powerful of husbands were present. But Draupadi, when she called out to Krishna holding the sari that, she was being disrobed, from which she was being disrobed, she held with one hand and she called for Krishna. There was nothing happening. And eventually she realized she has to surrender totally. So she had to raise 2 hands, and then Krishna supplied unlimited amounts of sari, not Punjabi, not gopi suit, not jeans. Krishna manifested as an unlimited sari, and he protected the chastity of Draupadi. So that's very amazing how Krishna never fails to reciprocate with the prayer of his devotee. So by read Kebashni. Jyoti, yeah.
One experience is suspicious by realizing the Paramatma or all pervading features. In one experience is that even more auspicious writing. But by meeting the personality of God in his lovely face, the devotee experiences the most auspicious future. Since he is addressed by the prime philosopher and maintainer and well-wisher of the universe, the supreme truth on universe.
Yes. So when one understands impersonal Brahman, that knowledge is not wrong. You can't go to a person who is worshipping the impersonal aspect of God and say, you are wrong. It's incomplete. He's not wrong. His knowledge is incomplete. By further association, if he gets to Paramatma feature, it's still incomplete. It's auspicious, but it is not complete. When one finally meets the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, that awakens complete happiness. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord himself, he comes into this world and he teaches us by example. So in this great book, which is the postgraduate study to the uh, Srimad Bhagavatam, right? After Bhagavad Gita, you get the Srimad Bhagavatam, then you get the CC or the Chaitanya Charitamrita. In that book, there's a conversation by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Ramananda Rai. And he asks Ramananda Rai, what is the complete understanding? Can you explain to me what is the highest understanding of philosophy? And Ramananda Rai starts to explain different aspects. And Lord Chaitanya says, go deeper, go deeper, go deeper. Eventually, Ramananda Rai, he comes to a situation where he explains the meeting of Radha and Krishna. And then Lord Chaitanya says, this is it. And eventually, he explains a prayer that was composed by Srimati Radharani to Krishna, explaining that how in the beginning, our attraction to each other uh, uh, was not in need of a middleman, right? It was just, the mutual attraction was there. But now, all of a sudden, Krishna is become so different. Now he needs a messenger, etc. So Krishna immediately closed the mouth of Ramananda Rai, right? And then Ramananda Rai goes on to explain after that about Krishna explains, to tell me more about, is it Srimati Radharani or what must one attain? So then Ramananda Rai says, you are speaking through me and hearing me. So it's not like he's giving the knowledge. So then he explains that the highest thing is the love of the Vraja gopis for Krishna and Radha, right? So that love is so unconditional. It is so devoid of any desire for any selfish gain, for any pleasure for the self. It is only focused on bringing pleasure to Radha and Krishna. So then Lord Chaitanya, he asks, how does one get to that platform? What do they do? What is the sadhana? And then he quotes a verse. Ramananda Rai quotes a verse that Uddhava mentions in the Bhagavatam. And he says, the chanting of the glories of Krishna by the Vraja gopis is the thing that is creating auspiciousness for the entire universe. So the purport explains that if one person accepts the holy name and chants the holy name, the vibration from that person creates an auspiciousness or holds back the tide of Kali, so to speak, by such a great amount. So it's the highest welfare activity one can do for the planet. And then, so this Ramananda Rai, he goes on to explain. He says that there was a time when Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, who does she worship? Narayan. She worships Narayan wearing the golden helmet, seated in Vaikuntha, served by many servants, etc., in total awe and reverence. She wanted to take part in the Rasa Leela. And in order to do that, she had to give up her position of great esteem. She had to give, Krishna said, if you want to enter the Rasa Leela, you got to take birth in the land of Vrindavan. And you have to do X, Y, and Z. So Lakshmi Devi, at one point in time, she comes to Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, she goes to a place called Bailvan. And in Bailvan, she sits and she performs austerities. And when she performs austerities in Bailvan, she still can't really enter the Ras Leela. So this meeting of Krishna, it requires pure devotion in a sense that is completely selfless, that is depicted by the Rajagopis. Um, the impersonalists, they cannot even get a taste of this because they're only stuck in the external aspect or the effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in the purport, Prabhupada goes on to explain, read Prem Parayana Prabhu.
This is the verdict of Sri Isopanisad. The word Kushan, and cleaner, is especially significant. For although the Lord maintains all beings, for although the Lord maintains all beings, he specifically maintains his devotees. After surpassing the impersonal Brahmajyoti and seeing the personal aspect of the Lord and his most auspicious eternal form, the devotee realizes the absolute truth in both.
So Krishna maintains his devotees, right? Sometimes it may seem like you are really losing hope in life. There's like actually hope against hope, right? Your situation is so bad. But if you hold on to your faith, all else is failing. You might as well just hold on to the faith because nobody can take that away from you. That much you should have conviction at heart about. Krishna, he maintains the devotee. So Krishna explained, there's a verse in Bhagavad Gita that we did where Krishna explains, and he uses the word vahamyaham. I carry what they lack and preserve what they have for the devotee, right? So when the great Acharya Jayadev Goswami, when he saw this vahamyaham, that Krishna will personally carry what the devotee lacks, he said, nah. So he struck it out and he put another word there. That which the meaning of which means Krishna will make arrangements. Not that he will personally carry what the devotee lacks. He will make the arrangements. So then he went to take his bath, and when he went begging, he actually didn't get anything. Nobody gave him any alms. So he came back, and his wife was waiting to cook whatever he would have begged, which was like the daily routine. And in his absence, two boys came, and these two boys, one blackish and one bluish in complexion, they brought an abundance of produce. And they came and they gave it to his wife, Padma. And she cooked this feast, and then they were in a hurry to go. And the black boy, he had some marks on his back. And he said, and she asked, what happened? Said, no, your husband is responsible for this, the white boy said. And that's why we have to go before he comes. So Krishna, so when Jayadev Goswami came back, he was so embarrassed that he had nothing, but then he saw his wife had all these, feast made with the topmost produce. So he asked her, who brought this? Where did you get it? And she explained, and then he could understand that Krishna personally carries what a devotee lacks. Then, Arjunacharya, sorry. And so what happened was Sudama. Sudama was so devoid of any material wealth, he couldn't even feed his children and his wife. And then it's getting a bit hot here. And what happened was Sudama, he went to see Lord Krishna, but he didn't have the courage to ask Krishna for what he needed. But Krishna, being in the heart of everybody, he served and welcomed. He welcomed Sudama with such grace, and he personally arranged that Sudama's house become transformed with all of the necessary requirements that he would need, to survive and more. And then you get the example of the fruit vendor. The fruit vendor was so enamored by Krishna's beauty that even though it was all that she ever had, she just willingly, Krishna came with these tiny little palms. He saw that his father would carry a palm full of rice and would barter with the fruit vendor. He would give grains to the fruit vendor, and the fruit vendor would give fruit in return. So he carried rice to go and bargain with the fruit vendor, imitating his father. But his palms were so small that by the time he reached the vendor, much of the rice grains had fallen out. And then he came and he said he gave it to her. And she was so enamored by this beauty of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that she gave willingly to Krishna all, which was like a earnings for the day. And miraculously, when she put her basket on her head and started to walk home, she felt it heavier in weight. And when she reached home, it had the most precious of jewels filled in that basket. Her whole day's work, a life's work, would not have earned her that. But the simple act of selflessness in making an offering to Krishna did. There are many instances in life, I can tell you, in my own life and in the lives of devotees, where the possessor of all opulence, Krishna, actually helps one in major ways. Anyone wants to share a story of how Krishna helped them in their time of need? He's been helping, right? I said, tell him a quick story. But I'll tell you a quick story in my life. When we joined the temple pretty young, and so there was no time for any tertiary education and stuff like that. So what happened was there was a point in time where we had personality clashes, so we moved out of the temple, and we had to rent an apartment to stay. So if you go to rent an apartment, you need to show them your credibility that you can pay accounts. So you got to show them some accounts that you've paid in the past. We never had a bank balance, right? So it was like, 17 to 20 years, no bank balance, and we're going for, for some credit record. We have no credit record. So we went to this lady, the agent, to rent a place. And, we really needed to rent a place. So we knew the requirements and we knew we didn't meet it. But in any case, we said, let's go and ask her. And Nishingananda Prabhu was shaven headed from his temple life, like clean shaven, no hair on the head. So he would look a bit too weird. So I went in. Right? And I was dressed in a sari, and Indian ladies wear sari, so I just went in. And this lady, she was swearing F's and B's on the phone. She was swearing somebody on the phone. She was an Afrikaner lady, big size, like don't mess with me kind of character. So she was like very intimidating, and she was swearing this somebody on the phone. So then she noticed I entered the office. She ended the call, and then she said, how can I help you? Not in the most polite of manner. So I said, seems like you're having a hard day. And she said to me, you can't imagine, how, and she went on about how irresponsible the person on the other end of the phone was, who happened to be an IT guy, who couldn't sort out a computer, so her business was ruined for the day, and for so many days he made promises he never kept, etc. So I opened my mouth. I don't know what came over me, and I said, if you're really in a tight spot, my husband's he's got an honors degree in computer science, and he knows about computers. Do you want him to look at your computer? So I called Nishinga Prabhu with his bald head from the car. And he came in, and I don't know what he did, but in less than 2 minutes, the computer was up and running. What? You remember what was wrong? I don't know what was wrong with the computer. By Krishna's mercy, he did something, it worked, and in 2 minutes, in that space of time, she was like, which building, which apartment do you want? Here's your papers. Don't tell anybody. You fill in the details and bring it to me tomorrow morning and give it in my hands. That's how we got our first apartment, in Terraceil 2, Weltevreden Park. And it was amazing. It was so amazing to rent. And it was a 3-bedroom apartment with no credit limit. We don't have a bank account even by then. neither do we have any cash, right? We were going to earn it during the course of the month to pay the rent at the end of the thing. So there are many instances like that in our lives, and I said in the lives of others, that Krishna, he carries you through. He really carries you through. So partial realization. In his Bhagavad Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami states the complete conception of the absolute truth is realized in the personality of Godhead, because he is almighty and possesses full transcendental potencies. Just one other thing. Krishna, it's explained in Bhagavad Gita about him maintaining his devotees, especially. Just as, if there's a rain cloud and the rain cloud showers water, right? What will happen to that water? The tree will absorb that water, accept nourishment off of bare fruits and flowers. If it falls on the hard rock, not much is going to happen. Isn't that so? So Krishna's mercy is there, and it falls equally on on everybody. Our heart has got to be the right receptacle to receive the mercy, right? It's not that we have expectations of Krishna, etc. But if our heart is pure, then we'd be able to catch that mercy, that rainwater that's raining down on us, right? When Krishna's mercy is raining. So the heart is to be the proper receptacle. One time, a devotee said to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada had this disciple, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, that you may have heard of, right? So he was like a very, very close associate of Srila Prabhupada. And one devotee expressed his feelings, which could have been the sentiments of many at that time. They said, Prabhupada, how is it that you give more mercy to Tamal Krishna Maharaj than to the rest of us? Prabhupada said, my mercy is equal to everybody. Tamal is expert in grabbing it, right? So Krishna's mercy is equal for everybody, but the devotees, they cultivate their hearts to become proper receptacles to grab and hold that mercy. Not grab and let go, but grab and hold that mercy. So Krishna maintains his devotee, maintains everyone, but especially his devotee. Just like, if there's if there are many children in this room, and if a fire starts, who do you think a parent will run for? To save their own child. It's natural affection, right? That you want to save your own child. You want to save your own kind. So similarly, Krishna, he's especially disposed to his devotee. And in his Bhagavad Jiva Goswami explained the complete conception of the absolute truth is realized in the personality of God, because he's almighty and possesses full transcendental potencies. The full potency of the absolute truth is not realized in the Brahma Jyoti. Therefore, Brahman realization is only partial realization of the personality of Godhead. So this purport is hammering the point that all other conceptions of God is incomplete. It is the personal aspect of God that is complete. One will get complete satisfaction, complete happiness if one reaches out beyond the Brahma Jyoti, beyond Paramatma realization to the personal aspect of God. Bhagavan, Avesh?
All learned stages. First symbol of the word Bhagavan, Bha, has two meanings. First is one who fully maintains. The second is guardian. Second symbol Ga means guide, leader, or creator. The symbol Van indicates that every being lives in him, and he also lives in every being. In other words, the transcendental sound Bhagavan represents infinite knowledge, potency, energy, opulence, strength, and influence, all without a tinge of material
Inebriety, right? In Prabhupada's writings, you come across very big words. It's normal, right? That may not be used commonly in in other situations. So Krishna is known as Bhagavan. Why is he known as Bhagavan? First is he who fully maintains. He is maintaining everything in this creation, including our lives, as the invisible thread that holds the pearls on a string, right? The beads look like they are hanging in good order, but what's holding it together? That which is not visible to our vision, the thread inside. So Krishna is that fine thread that's holding everything together. He fully is maintaining us. If Krishna had to remove his maintenance, what catastrophe can happen? Huh? Finished. How? Give me one way how we'll be finished. Gary?
don't have his mercy.
Yeah, but how? Let's say he pulls out gravity. Can you imagine the Earth is spinning at what speed on its axis? Right? And he has arranged gravity to keep us grounded, and we don't even notice. I mean, people said this morning there was an earth tremor in Johannesburg. Yeah. Did you feel it at 7 this morning? No. Can you imagine if Krishna stops gravity and the spin is going on at God knows how many kilometers per hour on the Earth's axis? You don't want to know how far we'll be flown off, right? So that's just one aspect. If Krishna removes oxygen from the atmosphere, what will happen, right? If you are simply, like we're talking, if you're in a room that's full of people, we claustrophobic. We need a good consumption of oxygen to survive and be happy surviving. you know, if Krishna removes so many different things, Krishna removes sunshine forever. Do you know how much bacteria comes on the skin of the human body? And the sun is actually keeping it at bay, right? But if digestion, if the fire of digestion is put out inside your stomach, what can you do? You can eat that which is most palatable, but you're dependent on Krishna supplying the fire of digestion. There's so many ways, and it's a good homework for you to do. When you go to sleep tonight, you start it. You start thinking of all the things. I just said sunshine, you can put on your list rain, oxygen. You build a list of all the things, the people around you that Krishna puts, all different things that he has given you. If he pulls it away, that how disastrous it can be. Your health, so many things, your vision, your hearing, your ability to pick up your hand, the ability for you to move your fingers, so many things. If Krishna takes away all of these abilities, you should put the list down, and you should then, that list will help you to cultivate gratitude towards Krishna. And when the heart heavy with gratitude calls upon the Lord, there will be a more tangible result, right? So we have to cultivate gratitude. The second is guardian. Krishna is the guardian of everybody. He's the leader, creator, and he also lives in every being, right? He is Bhagavan, right? He's infinite knowledge, potency, energy, opulence, strength, and influence, all without a tinge of material inebriety. Why? Because he is transcendental, he's beyond matter. And reaching the highest destination. Read, Prabhu.
The Lord fully maintains his unalloyed devotees and guides them progressively on the path towards devotional perfection. As the leader of his devotees, he ultimately awards the desired result of devotional service by giving himself to them. Devotees of the Lord see the Lord eye to eye by his causeless mercy. But the Lord helps his devotees reach the most spiritual planet below the Being the creator, he can bestow all necessary qualification upon his devotees so that they can ultimately.
So the Lord, he fully maintains his unalloyed devotees, and he guides them progressively on the path of devotion. So Krishna explains in the Srimad Bhagavatam and in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the indwelling witness in the heart of everybody, and he gives the knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. He removes the unwanted qualities in the heart of the devotee, and with the shining torch of knowledge, he shows them how to come closer to him. There are many verses like that in many of our scriptures where Krishna gives this affirmation. As a leader of his devotees, he ultimately awards the desired results. So he not only gives us the opportunity to serve, but when we execute service to him in an unalloyed fashion, he gives the ability, he gives the desired results. That means he helps us become elevated in consciousness and in the state of existence. So we said he is reciprocal, right? He is that leader who reciprocates in ways beyond our imagination. He also gives us the qualifications that we need to ultimately reach him, right? He helps us to reach the planet. So we're not left on our own. When we endeavor to come closer to Krishna, he makes many arrangements for us to come closer. There are so many stories, and I was living in as a full-time devotee in the Brahmacharini ashram, unmarried. At that time, my service was book distribution on the street from 9 to 6, right? So we would go down the street and we would distribute books, and many things could happen. So in that time period, I met many people, and they, preach. You preach to them, you just give them a book, sell them a book, and their lives change. You don't know what's happening in their life. What happened and how they ended up in front of you was all the Supreme Lord's doing. They come at the right time, right? And you just have to be the instrument and, put aside your false ego, be the servant, and distribute this thing. So what happened was, I'll tell you the quick story of one devotee. He, in Pretoria, he used to follow a specific route. Every day he would take the same route, take this bus, they said, jump off at this corner of the street, take this, pathway to lead him to his daily destination. So one day, I don't know what happened, he found himself jumping out of the bus or taxi a little early. So he landed off on another street. And then he knew he was going in a different direction, but he didn't know what was drawing him in that direction. And eventually he heard the sound of cartels. It doesn't come from any Vedic background or anything like that, He heard the sound of cartels and he thought, what's that ching, ching, ching? And he walked towards the sound and he met a devotee girl, and she gave him a book. It was a science of self-realization. He took the book home, or he took it to his destination, and he couldn't help himself. He started reading it. And when he went home, he continued reading it. In the end, he saw it made so much of sense, answered so much of his questions. He said, wow, whoever, this is like the true value of human existence that's mentioned in this book. It's extraordinary. So he saw the address of the temple in the back. He walked to the temple and he joined full-time as a youngster. And it was completely against his cultural beliefs, etc. But that drawing, and he became such an erudite scholar of Krishna consciousness. He can quote Sanskrit like backwards and forth in such an amazing way. So, Krishna, he leads the devotees to ultimately reach him, as this paragraph in the purport is ending off with. And Krishna is the supreme. Read, Derek.
The Lord is the cause of all causes. In other words, since there is nothing that caused him, he is the original cause. Consequently, he enjoys his own self by manifesting his own internal potency. The external potency is not exactly manifested by him, for he expands himself as the
Purushas.
And it is in these forms that he maintains the features of material manifestation. By such expressions, he creates, maintains, and annihilates the cosmic manifestation.
So just as if you have the owner of a huge conglomerate, he may be playing golf whole day on the field, right? Why? Because there's no one higher than him. So he enjoys, right? He plays golf. So who does everything? He has a management team that executes all his wishes instead of him working hard. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the supreme enjoyer. He is simply playing on his flute and enjoying with his intimate associates. And what happens? Everything else gets done by his plenary portions, not his complete expansions. They are plenary portions. So these three Vishnus expand, and from them there are other expansions, etc., etc., and everything gets done in perfect order. Right? So Krishna is the supreme. He has nobody higher than him. It's his internal potency that actually allows him to enjoy, etc. The power of devotional service. Read from us, Kivashni.
Entity also created God's self, and because of him, desire to be Lord's and takes God. He allows them to enter cosmic creation, option to utilize it, propensity to Lord it over nature. Because of the presence of these parts and us of the living entity, entire phenomenal world turned into creation. As the living entities are given full facilities to God over material nature, but the ultimate controller is God Himself. Super soul, which is one of
Purushas. Purushas. So what happens is that we said Krishna is like the sun, and then you get the rays, which are partial expansions of the sun. Or you get the ocean, and you get a drop from the ocean. Similar in quality, but not in quantity. So here, the Ishwar Bhav that we are mentioning, the nature to want to control, which is the Lord's nature, there's a fragment of that in each and every one of us. We have that desire in our conditioned state. So Krishna, so it's like this. If a child goes to the mother and says, "Mom, I want to cook like you," she say, "Okay, I want a stove like you, I want pots like you, and I want to cook like you." Sure, they buy a clay stove, clay pots, clay rolling pin, and let her cook in her corner of the kitchen. The result will frustrate her. She's right, because it won't be the same. If a child goes to the mother and says, "Mom, can I cook with you?" Not like you, like the one that's in the corner getting frustrated. The daughter says, "I'm going to cook with you." "Oh, come." And you hold a hand and you roll the pastry or the roti, with her, etc. It may not come out perfect, but then the mother holds it, cooks it over the stove. Yay, now she can eat it, right? And the mother eats half of it, out of reciprocation. So then, provided it's not dirty dough, right? So that is a different feeling there, because you want to enjoy like the Lord. You go in your corner of the material creation, and you try to lord it over. This paragraph of the purport is explaining. Krishna gives you that facility. But then, the material world is also known as Durgadam. It is the correct place of correctional services, right? You sinned. You wanted that desire to enjoy like Krishna. That's not a good desire. You have envy that, okay, Krishna's in control, I also want to be in control. And then you go to correctional services, planet Earth. And there you try to do it, not happening, right? You're not succeeding. There's always going to be a pinprick in the material world. You have to remove yourself from the material strata, relocate in the spiritual strata, and then you'll be in your natural abode, like a fish that goes back into water. The difference between God and us, Avesh?
Thus, there is a gulf of difference between the living entity Atma and the controlling God Paramatma, the soul and the super soul. Paramatma is the controller, and Atma is the controlled. Therefore, they are in different categories. Because Paramatma fully operates with the Atma.
Cooperates.
Cooperates with Atma. He's known as the constant companion.
Very good. So there's a vast difference between us and God. We can never claim to be God. You know, when I was on the um, uh, search, when I was preaching once, I went to the prison and I had, it was in the apartheid era. So we had 160 um, um, Model C prisoners. The Model C is hectic people, right? They commit the murders, triple murders, um, rapes, and they're in for big crime for longer sentences. So I had someone who corresponded to us at the temple, and I became in charge of that department. So I was corresponding with this person, and he became a devotee by reading Prabhupada's books, you know, and then he would correspond with me. I would preach to him, and then he made other people devotees. So we had 160 by the end of the day, you know, a short period of time. And I would go in the apartheid era, of course, a young Indian unmarried girl going to preach to Model C prisoners is not the most natural thing. So they would give me two armed guards, and I would go preach there. And you know, the prisoners became the best behaved prisoners in the prison, and it was making some amazing reverberations in the prison. So another following, they decided to go in and piggyback on the strength of my cultivation of the prisoners. So they went and they started telling the people, you have to practice self-realization. We also teach that, right? But the goal of self-realization is that you study self-realization to become God. So that was their understanding. So when I went to the prisoners told me, hey, you know, so and so Swamiji came here and told us this philosophy, and they also have a Bhagavad Gita. So then I came back home. I called the center of there, and I said, I want to speak to the head. So their Swamiji was there. So I spoke to him and I said, I pretended to be a student from Wits University who read some of Srila Prabhupada's books in the library, which I knew about because we put the books in the library at Wits, right? And then so then I said, no, this is a confused philosophy, because how can not God become God? You know, God is always God. So if I'm God, I should always be God. I shouldn't be covered temporarily by Maya, because Maya is God's inferior energy. So the guy said to me, you're a very intelligent person. I was thinking, yeah, Prabhupada is, you know, this is the knowledge I'm getting from him. And then he said to me, you must come personally and speak to me. But I never went, obviously, you know, because I didn't want to meet such a person. But he had no counteracting philosophy, because how can not God become God? So you can't become God. There's a gulf of difference between the Atma and the Paramatma. Therefore, we actually, you know, why? Krishna is the controller, we the controlled, right? Krishna doesn't come under his Maya, he controls Maya. So that's the difference between Krishna and us. He's the origin of everybody.
The all-pervading feature of the Lord, which exists in all circumstances of waking and sleeping, as well as in potential states, and from which the Jiva Shakti, living force, is generated as both conditioned and liberated soul, known as Brahman. Since the Lord is the origin of both Paramatma and Brahman, he is the origin of all living entities, all else that is. One who knows this engages himself at once in devotional service.
So we're all looking for a master. We all want to be led, right? We're either trying to be the masters and we're failing, or we need a teacher. We need someone to lead us along the path, right? And what better option than to choose the supreme leader and follow his path and reach the ultimate destination. Such a pure and fully cognizant devotee of the Lord is fully attached to him in heart and soul. And whenever such a devotee assembles with similar devotees, they have no engagement but glorification of the Lord's transcendental activities. So, what happens when one comes to the state of understanding Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan? one acknowledges that there is nothing left to taste in the material world. There is nothing left to play with. Everything else is paltry in front of the beauty and the existence and hearing the glories of the Lord. Therefore, when we come together as devotees, we don't go and do anything other than Machita Matkata Prana Bodhayanta Parasparam. We engage in speaking about this glories of the Lord and his transcendental activities. And like we said, like Uddhava explained in the Bhagavatam, that's quoted by Ramananda Rai in the CC, that the Vraja Gopis, what are they doing? They're doing the same thing. And they're creating auspiciousness for the entire universe. Those who are not as perfect as pure devotees, namely those who have realized only the Brahman Paramatma features of the Lord, cannot appreciate the activities of the perfect devotees, right? So a perfect devotee, he doesn't fit in with the Mayavadis and is never understood because they don't have that understanding. They cannot understand the higher understanding of someone who's not involved with the all things mundane. Therefore, it is important birds of a feather should stick together. So, we look for like-minded people and stick in such association. Krishna helps devotees. The Lord always helps the pure devotees by imparting necessary knowledge within their hearts, and thus, out of his special favor, he dissipates all darkness of ignorance. The speculative philosophers and yogis cannot imagine this because they more or less depend on their own strength. So everybody else is depending on their own strength to reach the ultimate destination. But a devotee reaches out and Krishna extends a helping hand, right? Krishna never forsakes the devotee's plea for help. And thus, in conclusion, as stated in the Katha Upanishad 1:2-23, the Lord can be known only by those whom he favors, not by anyone else. Such special favors are bestowed upon his pure devotees only. Sri Isopanisad thus points to the favor of the Lord, which is beyond the purview of the Brahma Jyoti. So, such special favors, right? The Lord can be known only by those whom he favors, not by anyone else. First point, right? If Krishna favors you, you'll get the mercy. Then, not by anyone else. Such special favors are bestowed by his pure devotees only. So, there's a book called what's the time? Okay, in 5 minutes, I'll tell you a quick story. There's a book called the Brihat Bhagavatam Rita. And in that book, there is actually it's in that scripture, there's a story of a person called Gopa Kumar. And he goes from a learned Brahmana who's worshipping Shaligram Shilas in South India. He goes and he glorifies him and say, "You're the highest devotee." And then that Brahmana says, "I'm not the highest. Go to the king of the heavens, Indra. He worships. I'm worshipping. My worship is limited here. Indra does better worship of Shaligram in Indraloka, in the heavens." So when he goes to Indra, Indra tells him, "No, go to Brahma. Brahma is a better devotee." So when he goes to Brahma, Brahma says, "No, Shiva is a better devotee." So like that, Gopakumar travels from one place to the other in search of the ultimate goal of life. Eventually, he comes to Uddhava, right? They send him, each one sending him to another one. Eventually, he gets sent to Uddhava. And Uddhava, when Gopakumar reaches Uddhava and he starts glorifying him as the best devotee, then Uddhava says, "No, it's not me. It's the Vraja Gopis, right? They are actually the highest." So then they try to understand what type of sadhana gets one to that level. And it is only, you'll find that the verses explain there that it's only by serving the servant of the servant of the servant that one reaches that position. So you get Krishna and Radharani, and then you get their intimate associates, the Sakis, and then you get the Manjaris who help the Sakis. And even amidst the Manjaris or the younger gopis, there are different categories. So up and until one actually becomes the servant of the servant of the servant, one actually does not earn the attention of Krishna. If one simply goes and says, Radharani, today I want to do this service, it's not the way. You may not even reach there to have that conversation. Right? So, so like it's being explained here, such special favors are only bestowed by Krishna. Why? Because Goloka Prema Dana Hari Nam Sankirtan. It descends. It's a descending knowledge. It comes from the spiritual strata. It descends into this material world. And we can only get it by humility. And one of the qualities is humility. Lakshmi Devi, she, with all of her sadhana and her acceptance of the Lord as the most revered personality to worship, could not attain Krishna, right? And the acharyas explain that if there is something beyond even just following sadhana. One has to become the servant of the servant of the servant. So going back to the 24 elements that one has to penetrate beyond, one of the things was hatred, right? And the world is so full of hatred these days. So one has to understand that to cultivate that which is opposite of hatred, love, one should engage in loving service to the pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of God. So one should recognize. So one time when Prabhupada was in Mayapur, he heard some fighting outside his door. And he asked his secretary to go and have a look what's happening. And there was a commotion about the remnants. The cook had cooked for Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had taken, and then he took, the prasad that was left over out. And the one person, he wanted all of it because he couldn't eat anything else. And the other person was saying it's not right to give everything to just one person. Everyone should get a little of Prabhupada's remnants because, remnants of a pure devotee, etc., etc. So then that was the commotion all about. So the secretary came back and related the issue to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada told the devotee who had the prasad, he said, go and tell the devotee who has all the prasad, took the tray out. It's not enough to serve the spiritual master. You should serve the servant of the spiritual master also. So sometimes we think, we can't serve anybody else but Srila Prabhupada. But in actual fact, Prabhupada becomes more pleased if you serve all of his sincere servants. So anyone that's serving his mission in a sincere way and has proven themselves, one should understand that that person has something that I don't have. And thereby, by that person's association, I can get something. Even if the person is properly explained in one lecture I was listening to the other day, even if someone is 2% more advanced than you should take that person's association. The person may be an ocean of bad qualities, but is 2% better than you. You should associate to get that 2%. Why? Because it's something you don't have. Right? So in the world, we can actually progress if we are able to become expert and clutch onto the various 2% around us, if we can't find the 50% and the 60% and the 100%, right? So in that way, we can become a servant of the servant of the servant, and thereby earn Krishna's special favor that he bestows upon his pure devotees only. So sadhuvo hridayam mayam, in the Bhagavatam, Krishna explains that he is within the heart of the sadhu and the sadhu is within his heart. The sadhu knows nothing else but him, and he knows nothing else but the sadhu, right? So that with that thought, we shall conclude and repeat the verse prayer again. O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, well wisher of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun as am I. Just like I'm a ray of the sun, I'm not the whole sun. You are everything. I am insignificant in front of you. Thereby, I'm appealing to you. Remove your effulgence and allow me to come closer to you. So we conclude there for today. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Are there any questions, comments, corrections, thoughts? All's good? Thank you very much. We shall meet again for mantra 17. Shri Isopanisad ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi.
Thomas, there's a lot more to it.